As the clock ticks down towards the first deadline of the summer, Chelsea are trying to bring in Jamie Gittens. But will Borussia Dortmund sell to another of the clubs competing in the Club World Cup? Manchester City are taking part in that competition in the States too. Rayan Cherki, one of two top players they're trying to sign as we speak. There are just under 2 hours to go to get those deals done. Hi there, good evening. Welcome along to the transfer window countdown. Former England striker Dean Ashton is here to give us the players' perspective, and Kaveh Solokol and Dharmesh Sheth will give us the inside track as clubs from all around the world attempt to bolster their squads in time for the Club World Cup. Well, Joe Bellingham has left English football behind and headed for the Bundesliga. Stand by to hear from the teenager who's landed Sunderland a record fee. Real Madrid have been boosting their options for the Club World Cup. £50 million defender Dean Howson has arrived. We're live at the Bernabeu as they prepare to welcome Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. And you Liverpool fans, is Milos Kerkez your next summer signing? Stand by for the details on that developing transfer. And on top of all of that, don't forget, Spurs could soon have a new boss. We'll be right across that as well. So, Dean, welcome along. This transfer window, this first transfer window of the summer, will clubs have enjoyed this, or will it have been a real problem for them?
I think it might be a slight change in terms of showing your hand early. I think we're, over the transfer windows over the last few years, it feels like we have to wait forever for transfers that you almost know are going to happen to fall all the way through the summer. And the rumours to keep going. Whereas, if clubs want to get their business done early with the Club World Cup, they've had to show their hand early, and they have done. So probably they're doing work constantly throughout the season leading into that the transfer window. So probably it's quite nice to be able to just go straight in and try and get the players that you want. And from a player's perspective, I think that extra bonus of joining a club that's then going to go straight into a Club World Cup, joining your teammates, being able to play straight away rather than having to wait for that first game, I think is quite a nice bonus.
Any worry about the workload for players, though, because they've just finished the season, Club World Cup, then they're going to go straight into the Premier League, and then there's a World Cup?
Of course, but you don't think about that as a player. You don't. Are you envious that you see your teammates on the beach? Yes, of course. And would you want to be there on the yachts and what you see? Of course you would. Of course you would want to. But with the chance to play, players want to play and they don't really think about it until you maybe get that injury and then turn around and go probably, oh well, it probably was too much of a workload. When you're in it, you love it. It's the best job in the world that you can have. So you don't complain too much about getting to play.
So much to talk about. Right, let's go to James Savundra, who's at Chelsea. And we're all dying to know, James, attempts to sign Jamie Gittens. Are they going to get it over the line?
Well, Mark, a very good evening to you. When I got here at 7 o'clock this morning, it looked like Chelsea may sign 2 players. Then later on in the afternoon, it looked like they weren't going to sign any players. And now there is still hope they can sign 1 before the deadline at 7 p.m. Talks ongoing. Chelsea are still pushing to sign Jamie Gittens. They have not given up hope on signing the winger before the deadline at 7 p.m. this evening. They lodged a bid around £42 million earlier on this afternoon to Borussia Dortmund. That bid has not been accepted, but talks do continue. Sky in Germany are reporting that Borussia Dortmund are looking in the region of around £55 million for Gittens to leave them today. Now, we understand that Gittens has been in training today. He's been at the club's headquarters, and interestingly, the sporting director of the club was due to speak to the media earlier on this afternoon. That was cancelled. Perhaps that's linked to the ongoing discussions between Chelsea and Borussia Dortmund around the 20-year-old winger. We know Jamie Gittens wants to move to Chelsea. Jamie Gittens wants to play for Chelsea at the Club World Cup. Personal terms not expected to be a problem because there's a verbal agreement already around those personal terms. Chelsea have not given up hope, but is there enough time now? Less than 2 hours left of this first transfer window of the summer. Chelsea continue their talks with Borussia Dortmund around the signing of Jamie Gittens. Will they get this deal done?
Well, if they do, we know you'll bring it to us first. James Savundra, live from Stamford Bridge. Thanks, James. James? Yeah, James. Kaveh, right, you've been across this Chelsea, all their dealings so far in this first window. Do you feel they've left it too late?
With Gittens,
Yeah.
I think it's touch and go, but I think overall they've had a really good window because they signed Liam Delap. Liam Delap could have had his pick of quite a few clubs in the Premier League, but he decided to choose Chelsea. So that is a big plus for Chelsea, especially because he had a release clause of £30 million, which in this day and age is remarkable value for a player who could turn out to be as good as he could one day. They tried to sign Dean Howson. They were one of the clubs who were in for him. Real Madrid came in. He was always going to pick Real Madrid. The situation with the goalkeeper, Mike Maignan, they haven't been really actively looking to sign a goalkeeper, but they were offered the chance to sign Mike Maignan. They had a look at him, but they weren't willing to pay what AC Milan wanted. Jamie Gittens is more of a live situation in the sense that Chelsea will recruit in his position. They want somebody right-footed, preferably, who can play on the left wing. Mudryk is suspended at the moment. Jadon Sancho has left. And Gittens is one of their top targets. But again, I don't think they're going to pay 65 million euros, what Dortmund are asking for. Having said that, the latest information we've got is they are locked in discussions with Dortmund at the moment. So there's still a chance that the deal can be done. My only concern really is that if you look at the history of the way Dortmund do business when it comes to transfers, they don't let players go on the cheap. You remember what happened with the saga surrounding Jadon Sancho that went on and on for windows and windows and years before he moved to Manchester United. So I think if Dortmund want to make life difficult for Jamie Gittens and also for Chelsea, they are capable of doing that. But the desire from Chelsea is there to get the deal done as quickly as possible.
Dharmesh, talk us through the mechanics of what's going on now, because they've had a couple of bids rejected, Chelsea, for Gittens. How do they get this over the line in now less than 2 hours?
Try and get even closer to what Borussia Dortmund would want. I think the fees that they're talking about now, Sky Germany is saying they're after up to 65 million euros for Chelsea to be able to buy Jamie Gittens. But sometimes that 65 million can be made up of performance-related add-ons as well. So it depends how close that second bid, which was rejected by Dortmund, is to what Borussia Dortmund would actually want in an initial payment. Because if Chelsea can make up that fee, and it can be made up in various different ways, there'll be achievable add-ons, there'll be more challenging add-ons. If they can get to that point where Borussia Dortmund will be satisfied that, yes, this is as close as we want it to be to our asking price, then it can be done. But they are running out of time. But I think Carve's been saying throughout this last couple of weeks that, yes, Chelsea do want to sign Gittens. Gittens does want to go to Chelsea. But if it doesn't happen in this particular window, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen full stop, because it still can happen. And you mentioned Jadon Sancho there. I just wonder whether there's a little domino effect going on here as well, because Chelsea decided not to take up the obligation on Sancho. They ended up paying the £5 million penalty. He's gone back to United. So Chelsea now need another left-sided player who can play with his right foot, Gittens. Dortmund might need a left-sided player, and they've been asked to be kept up to date with developments on Jadon Sancho's future as well. So, look, it could be a few dominoes falling into place there.
I also think that for Chelsea's American owners, I think they are really invested in the Club World Cup. It's in the USA. It's a big chance for them to show off their club and attract new fans as well. And I think that's why they're delighted that they're going to be showing Delap off, because Delap could have been playing in the under-21 Euros, which start tomorrow. And they were quite interested in the idea of also having France's #1 goalkeeper to show off. And they want to show Gittens off as well. So Chelsea's owners, I think, are taking the Club World Cup more seriously than some other people, especially in the European game.
Is that why do you think that Dortmund are in the stronger position because of the Club World Cup? Or will Chelsea be saying, well, if you don't take this now for him, then after the Club World Cup, we'll look elsewhere?
I think Chelsea do have other targets in that position, players like Alejandro Garnacho. But I think it's one that they would revisit, even if they don't do it tonight. I think maybe when the window opens again on Monday, it's something they'll look at during the rest of the window, because they like the player so much. I think they've got quite close ties with his representatives as well, and the player himself really, really wants to move to Chelsea.
Okay.
Just one thing on Gittens. He if he doesn't get this move to Chelsea just now, and he can't play in the Club World Cup, he can actually play for Borussia Dortmund, can't he?
Yeah, I mean,
The Club World Cup.
he's due to play for Borussia Dortmund in the Club World Cup. They're in a group with Fluminense, the Brazilian club, Ulsan Hyundai of South Korea, and also Mamelodi Sundowns of South Africa. So you would have to say that Dortmund should get through that group and get into the knockout stages, and then who knows, they could face Chelsea. But at the moment, he's going to be playing for Dortmund. But in the next couple of hours, if they manage to do a deal, he could be playing for Chelsea against Los Angeles FC next Monday.
Good group knowledge, by the way, Chief. Good group knowledge. Right. What about Manchester City? Well, of course, they're the other English team trying to make signings before the deadline this evening, because they are, of course, at the Club World Cup as well. Let's go to the Etihad. Our reporter, Sani Rudravajula, is there for us. Sani, City fans getting a bit twitchy. Are they going to get these over the line?
Yeah, the clock is ticking. The day started with Manchester City announcing actually they've got a new shirt for the Club World Cup, a white shirt with a sash. And since then, we've been waiting on news of signings. Who do we know who has signed? Well, we had Rayan Cherki announced that yesterday from Wolverhampton Wanderers, left back, so that frees up Nico O'Reilly to play in midfield. It frees up Josko Vardiol to go back into the middle. Today, so far, confirmed, Marcus Bettinelli signed a one-year deal from Chelsea. We'll remember him from his time at Fulham, where he was number one there for a period, but he'll be coming in to replace Scott Carson, who's left. So they've got a third-choice goalie in, so competition for Ortega and Ederson, but primarily in the back room, kind of helping out with the club. Backroom staff-wise, Pep Lijnders has signed as Pep's new assistant manager for Manchester City. We'll know him from his time at Liverpool, where he was Jurgen Klopp's right-hand man. When Klopp left Liverpool, he went and became a manager in his own right at RB Salzburg. That then didn't quite work out for him, and he left by December after joining in the summer. So as far as who's trying to join and who has joined, that's where we're up to. But the signings we're waiting on now, Tijani Reinders of AC Milan, central midfielder. That deal has been agreed but yet to go through. 26-year-old Dutchman, good, take on a shot from distance. Serie A midfielder of the year for this season, even though AC Milan finished 8th in the table. And the other one we're waiting on as well, Rayan Cherki, right winger for Lyon, 20 assists for them this season in Ligue 1 and in the Europa League. Brilliant volleyed goal on his debut for France as well. Those two signings, if they're going to happen in time for the Club World Cup group stage, which kick off in 8 days, they've got to be done by 7 o'clock. So new faces have come in. We're still waiting on a few deals that we know have been agreed, have yet to be formally announced. And we're waiting here till 7 and maybe even later if that's what it takes.
Yeah, Sani, thank you. Yeah, they've got an hour and 42 minutes. Get on with it, City. Put us in the player's head now, Dean. You want to go to the Club World Cup. You want to join Manchester City. What are you going through? As Sani said, the clock is ticking towards this deadline.
I think it depends what type of player you are and type of person you are, because as we saw a little bit with Trent Alexander-Arnold, you want everything. You want to have that relationship with your own fans at the club that you're at, but you might secretly really want the move. So you pass it straight over to your agent and just say, you deal with it all. I'll keep telling you that I want the move. Try and get it through. That's not to say I'm putting words in their mouth, but having had the experience, I'm going, I want the move. And it could be a huge move for them both in terms of what they could win with that new club, financially, what that package could mean for you and your family. So if you want that move, you're pushing your agent to make that happen. The club that are buying are pushing your agent, for me as the player, to probably say something to make that easier.
How difficult is that for you as a player, stuck in the middle like that?
It's very difficult because you want to keep the peace, and you will have a great relationship with the club's fans that you're currently at. And like I said, we want everything. We want that relationship to stay intact, but we also maybe want the move. So we tend to stay quiet. There's only a few that will jump out and maybe put in a transfer request or voice their feelings, but they're quite few and far between.
This whole City rebuild is really interesting to me, though, because you've got a situation where back in January they look like they're starting it. They spent over £125 million on 3 players. They look like they're doing it again with another £150 million as well. Pep Guardiola recently signed a contract extension to 2027. Are these signings, do you think, him maybe even looking further than 2027? And could we see a possibility where Pep Guardiola even further extends his stay because he sees all of these young players who might be coming together in this season, and he might not be able to see that whole rebuild out if he was to go when he says he is?
Yeah, I think so, because I think it's the one thing we maybe haven't seen in his managerial career is that full rebuild of a squad and churn over of players, top quality players that have maybe just dipped in their performances. And it was so obvious. And I just think the business they've done is so positive in those areas that were clear to see that the energy in midfield had been lost, some of the quality as well. And they've just proactively gone, and surely he's a big part of that, and he's then going to utilise those players. I think it's slightly scary almost for the rest of the Premier League that they're already doing this amount of business so soon.
And also, it sort of shows how seriously Manchester City are taking the Club World Cup, because don't forget, they are the reigning world champions. And whoever wins this Club World Cup for the next 4 years, you can wear a badge on your shirt to say you're the world champions. The last Club World Cup, which was the old version, which was just 10 days or so in Saudi Arabia, Pep Guardiola was really focused on winning that. That meant a lot to him. He really wanted to make Manchester City world champions. This time round, I think when he's talked about this expanded month-long Club World Cup, he's been not dismissive, but I think he's had some concerns about player burnout, and he seemed to suggest that maybe it would be a little holiday for the players as well. I think Manchester City are staying in Palm Beach, one of the best locations you can stay at in the US during the summer. But when you look at the transfer business they've done, you think actually they're really, really serious about retaining this trophy and being able to have that World Champions badge on their shirts for another 4 years.
Do you think City want to win it, given there's, 100 million you can win if you win it?
Yeah, right? I think if you win it, you make an extra 100 million, which in this day and age, this age of FFP and PSR, where it's all about trying to maximise your revenues, Chelsea and Manchester City have got this incredible opportunity to earn an extra £100 million, which none of their other rivals in the Premier League can.
So that said, despite the fact they're in Palm Beach, are they in it to win it?
Oh, very much so, and I'm sure that that'll be the message behind the scenes. And when you've got that fresh influx of players to give the current players a bit of kick up the backside, and also that ultimately they are playing. You can't buy history, and they are playing catch up in terms of that global look of the football club and the revenue that they can bring in, and this can be a big part of that. Of almost showing off Manchester City, what they've become, the powerhouse that they've started to become, certainly in England and beyond. Right,
well, we'll see if they do their business with 2 more signings before the window. Just before we go to the break, some news just getting to us. 18-year-old Olympiacos forward Charalampos Kostoulas will have a medical at Brighton tomorrow. We at Sky Sports News reported on Sunday that Brighton had submitted a bid of £34 million for the player, who can play right across the front line. Now, the Greek champions asking for a sizable sell-on clause. Kostoulas is due to fly into the UK today, so we'll keep an eye on that. And we'll also be keeping an eye on what's going on in Madrid, where Dean Howson has been unveiled as a Real Madrid player this afternoon. We'll tell you when it's Trent Alexander-Arnold's turn. That and more to come, and those last-minute signings here in Transfer Window Countdown. Hello again. This is the transfer window countdown as we continue to head towards the first deadline of the summer. Much more to come, much more on Chelsea and Manchester City as that deadline approaches. First, though, we're going to talk Real Madrid, who are never far away from a mega deal, let's face it. Well, they spent £50 million on the Bournemouth defender Dean Howson, and he's now a Madrid player. And the Madrid president, Florentino Perez, welcomed the 20-year-old today for his signing ceremony. Howson joins on a 5-year deal after just one season in the Premier League with Bournemouth. It means that the Real Madrid head coach, Xabi Alonso, will be able to call on the Spain international at the Club World Cup. Howson is hoping to follow in the footsteps of his childhood idol, Sergio Ramos, and ultimately wear the number 4 shirt.
Of course, it's a dream for me. My family, I think they can be proud of me today. And I'm very proud of myself and just hoping to help the team. And the number 4 is something I don't think about. It's any number that I get is good for me. For me, as long as I'm able to wear the Real Madrid shirt, it's an immense honor for me, and I'm just really happy to do so.
Our reporter Vinny O'Connor's got a tough gig. He is in Madrid for us. Vinny, very good evening. So, Howson, how did he do in the spotlight?
He came across, Mike, as someone who's really relishing the opportunity to call that famous stadium behind me home. He was composed, he was in control throughout, didn't really give too much away either, and you kind of got an impression as to exactly what he went through today. Introduced by Florentino Perez to a room full of people. He was then sat next to his parents as they showed a video of his career highlights before he then had to give a speech. By the way, some of those highlights, when you look at what he did as a younger player as well, striding out from the back, going to the edge of the box and curling in goals, he really is a spectacular player. We know about his prowess, of course, in the box as well, his height, his aerial ability when it comes to scoring goals, but also his defensive qualities as well. And you just got a sense of what becoming a Real Madrid player meant to him today. He moved over to Spain as a youngster with his parents, and that's where his affinity with Real Madrid grew. And you saw pictures of him today as a young boy wearing his Real Madrid kit. And then again, he spoke about Sergio Ramos, what a hero he is to him. The fact that he sees Sergio Ramos as the most complete, the best central defender ever, he put it at one point, and he wants to take every part of his game as well. When it came to that number 4 shirt, he was a little bit less forthcoming. Yes, I think it is his ambition, reading between the lines, to follow Sergio Ramos in wearing that number 4 shirt. But of course, he's very respectful of the fact that David Alaba currently holds that shirt here at Real Madrid as well. So it was a very good performance from Dean Howson today. He's certainly settling in, albeit he only arrived yesterday, underwent those medical checks. Obviously, has spoken to Xabi Alonso, and they're just building up now to that Club World Cup, of course, just a few days before Real Madrid fly out to the USA for that, but he certainly feels a part of things already.
OK, so that's Howson. When will we see Trent Alexander-Arnold in a Real Madrid shirt?
We will see him on Thursday. That's the expectation. It's not been officially confirmed by Real Madrid. We're expecting that confirmation to come through tomorrow. Of course, Trent Alexander-Arnold is still involved with England, and we expect him to play some part against Senegal this evening. It was interesting, actually, speaking to the Madrid journalists today as well and seeing how Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to fit into things. Clearly, they're looking to overhaul that back line with the arrival of Howson and the arrival of Trent Alexander-Arnold as well, and both of them being eligible to play in the Club World Cup. But it's how Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to fit into that side. Obviously, Lucas Vasquez, he fills the void left behind by him. At the same time, there's still Carvajal here to compete with. And the chat amongst the Madrid journalists today was that obviously they've seen Trent Alexander-Arnold playing that hybrid role, moving slightly into midfield for Liverpool at times over the last couple of seasons. But here at Real Madrid, they believe that he's going to be asked to be played more as an out-and-out right-back. He will be asked to get forward, of course, but they expect more from him defensively as well. So there'll be work to do for Trent Alexander-Arnold, but a massive challenge, and he was obviously looking for a new challenge when he made the decision to come over to Real Madrid.
I want to talk Rodrigo, Vinny. We know that Arsenal are interested in him. Are Real Madrid desperate to keep him?
Well, I was wondering whether this was going to be a way of raising funds to get a deal for Zubimendi done. But when we spoke to those around the club today at that news conference as well, it was very much felt that despite those reports over here that Real Madrid could hijack Arsenal's move for Zubimendi, he was going to get that medical done at Arsenal and complete a deal there. So as regards Rodrigo, think you have to look at what Xabi Alonso said when he arrived as the Real Madrid head coach. He said straight away, Rodrigo is a Madrid player, he's a spectacular player, and we will need him. And you look at what he did last season, 51 games, 14 goals, 10 assists. I think the slight debate is that those connected with the club expected him to kick on a little bit more. He got 17 goals the previous season, of course, and they perhaps expected him to improve even further on those numbers at the same time as well. Listening to what they have said around the club, Rodrigo feels that under Alonso he wants to be a real significant player. To that end, though, he feels more comfortable playing off the left-hand side. The problem there is Vinicius Junior occupies that role for Real Madrid, and then it's further complicated fitting Rodrigo into the side, the fact that Kylian Mbappe is here as well. And certainly Xabi Alonso is very much his own man when it comes to choosing tactics as well. That's where the debate is as to whether it's maybe the right time for a parting of the waves between Real Madrid and Rodrigo at the moment. But all we can say, certainly at this time, is that he remains a Real Madrid player, and Xabi Alonso's sentiments are that he wants to keep hold of him as well.
Vinny O'Connor, live from Madrid. Thanks, Vinny. Right, Dean, I need you to explain something to me. I'm always told players cannot turn down Real Madrid. Why?
I think it's because of the history. I think it's the aura of that shirt and what it brings. The players that have played for the club.
Isn't it just a shirt?
No, it's not. It's almost whiter than white. It's just it is strange because you're right. It's just a white shirt, but I think it's the history. It's the stadium. It's what you've seen the players that have played for that club achieve and create. I think sort of makes you almost spellbound a little bit with that. For me, actually, it was as a kid growing up. It was AC Milan. It was the San Siro. It was Marco van Basten. Yeah. Someone who was my hero as a kid. That to me was the sort of the team I would always love to have put on that shirt and played for. Obviously, it didn't happen. But for him, I mean, what a moment it must be. Like childhood dream to play for a club like Real Madrid. I don't think he's quite confident enough yet to go, I want the number 4. And if I'm not having it, I'm not happy. I don't think he'll do that. But what business for Bournemouth? I mean, just incredible to have only played the one season with them, and then to get that move is quite incredible.
And Carve, how far have Bournemouth come that they can sell players to a club like Real Madrid for 50 million quid?
Well, it's not just one as well, because Milos Kerkez could be going to Liverpool for around £50 million as well, although I don't think Liverpool want to pay that much. PSG are also trying to sign their other centre-back, Zabani. Luis Campos, the PSG sporting director, really rates him highly. And I think once PSG come in for you, it's very difficult to not agitate for a move. I'm not saying that's what the player is doing, but when you see how well PSG played in the Champions League final and how they could dominate European football for perhaps the next few seasons, surely that's one of the places you want to be as well. But I think Bournemouth, it's all about the structure of the club, the way the club is run, the recruitment at the club. They found these players, and I'm sure they will find their replacements as well. If you're a Bournemouth fan, you know, with all due respect, you're not expecting Dean Howson to stay at the club for his whole career, especially because when they signed him, he had this £50 million release clause in his contract.
But Dharmesh, if you're a Bournemouth fan, you're going to be pretty annoyed, aren't you, that your backline is going to be decimated when you had a great season and you feel like you could build on in the next season?
I mean, Bournemouth have sold players in the past and their recruitment is fantastic. They keep rebuilding and getting to a position where they can perform well on the pitch under a fantastic manager now in Andoni Iraola, who's been attracting interest from a number of the biggest clubs. So, yes, of course, Bournemouth are going to be upset. Their fans will be upset that the likes of Howson has gone. Kerkez looks like he might going. A couple of others as well. But they're already making moves to replace these players. And I'm sure when they know that they've got a player who's going to command such a big transfer fee, their work into a potential replacement will have gone on long before. It's not a case of, there goes Dean Howson, and what are we going to do? They'll know what they're going to do because they're so well drilled in their recruitment. You can compare them to like clubs like Brighton and Brentford as well, who are very similar, who sometimes have to let go of some of their better players. And everyone says, well, they're going to struggle now, and yet they always seem to find a way.
Yeah, fair point. All right, let's take a break. Do you know what? It's less than an hour and a half. Chelsea trying to get deals done. City trying to get deals done. We've shown you pictures of Jamie Gittens training on his own. There he is. He'll be wondering who will be playing for at the Club World Cup. Will Chelsea get him before the deadline at 7? If they do, we'll tell you. It's not just players on the move. We're off to Tottenham next for an update on their pursuit of the Brentford manager, Thomas Frank. That and more to come in Transfer Window Countdown. Chelsea and Manchester City both trying to get deals done before 7 o'clock tonight. And I tell you what, they are running out of time. Chelsea trying to get Jamie Gittens over the line. Kaveh Solokol has got some news. What have you got?
Well, the latest information we have is that time has almost run out for Chelsea to sign Jamie Gittens today. I think it's looking very unlikely now. But the information we're getting is that Chelsea will try to sign him again when the window reopens next Monday. Because the window's closing at 7 o'clock, but it's reopening next Monday. So they're not going to give up. Even if they don't get Gittens today, I don't think they will now, because these discussions have been going on too long. They haven't been able to come to an agreement. They will try again. I'm also being told again that Chelsea are being very disciplined, the same as with Mike Maignan. They've got a valuation for a player and they will not go above that valuation. They won't overpay for Jamie Gittens. They think they know what he's worth and they won't pay more than that. Also, I think they believe that Borussia Dortmund will sell Gittens this summer because apparently he doesn't fit into the style of play or the way the new head coach there wants to play. And they know that the player himself really, really wants to move to Chelsea. So with all that in mind, I think Chelsea's thinking is, let's not overpay and get too excited and carried away just because there's this first deadline. Let's wait until the window opens next Monday, and we've got the rest of the summer to try and do a deal for Jamie Gittens. And if Borussia Dortmund don't play ball, we'll switch our attention to another target. Sky Germany are being a little bit more bullish than we are at the moment, because Sky Germany are basically saying the deal is off.
Right.
They're saying the deal is off. Chelsea are not offering enough money. Interestingly, the Dortmund sporting director, Sebastian Kehl, was due to be giving a media briefing to journalists this evening. Now, that was cancelled because everybody assumed that he was locked in these discussions with Chelsea and a deal was about to be done. So I want to find out in the next few minutes from Sky Germany whether he's still going to be holding that briefing, because if he is, I'm sure our reporters from Sky Germany will be at that briefing and we'll be able to get the latest from Dortmund's perspective.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Kaveh. Right. Let's speak to European football expert Andy Brassel, who joined us now. Andy, very good evening. So, Kaveh's saying the Gittens deal might be off for now, but Chelsea will try and get him before the next window finishes. If they do get him, what would he bring to the club?
A winger who's a lot more direct than anything they already have, which I think is always the point, isn't it, when you're signing a player? Give yourself something that you don't have already. Now, of course, they've tried different people on the left side. And I think when we're talking about getting a winger from Dortmund, we have to talk about the link between Jadon Sancho, who's just left Stamford Bridge, and Jamie Gittens, who might be taking his place, because that kind of happened already at Dortmund. They've both come on similar career paths, from playing academy football at Manchester City to going over for their first experience of senior football at Dortmund. And it's worked well for both of them. I think they're very, very different sort of forwards, though, because Sancho, who took Gittens under his wing and actually really helped boost him into the player that he became last season, it's absolutely fascinating, really, to look at him and think that Sancho is a player who likes to beat a player. Now, Gittens likes to do that too, but also you're more likely to get a shot and a goal at the end of it from Gittens. He had a brilliant first half of the season. There's no doubt about that. Second half of the season, not quite as good. Hasn't only scored one goal since January and no assists since then. So I think the feeling is it would be better for everyone at this point if he moved on.
Andy, tell us about Rayan Cherki. How good is he?
Well, I think a lot of the way that the deal has come together can tell you about the progress he's made in the last year. Because if you remember at the back end of last season's transfer, or last summer's transfer window, Mike, you had Crystal Palace and Fulham being offered him for 15 million euros. Now he's gone to City for nearly 3 times that, despite the fact his contractual situation has not really changed. The talent has been there since he's 15, 16. It's been clear. And for someone at his age, he's only 21, to have played that many first games, played well over 100 first-team games for Lyon, shows you that they're getting someone very experienced. But what they've got is someone who last summer was considered a great talent, is now a great player. And there's a big definition there, because Cherki always had it all. You know, he could nutmeg you in a phone box, 2 great feet, super delivery, could go around any player you like. But now he's put that all together in the context of being a footballing adult almost. So the bit where he didn't get the move that he wanted last summer, and he thought he would go to PSG or Dortmund actually next summer. Dortmund had another go for him in January, and that didn't happen. And all of a sudden they were trying to foist him to clubs who are maybe not so glamorous in the Premier League, with all due respect to Palace and Fulham. I think it made him knuckle down and think, right, okay, I've got to start playing a little bit more realistically now. He's far better in knowing when to keep the ball and when to release the ball. He doesn't dribble for the sake of it. You look at the fact he's got 11 goals and 20 assists last season, shows you just what bang you're getting for your buck. I think City are getting him at absolutely the right time.
Are Liverpool going to get Florian Wirtz at the right time? They're going to have to pay well over £100 million. Is he worth that?
Yeah, he absolutely is worth that. I think he's one of the best midfield players in Europe. Again, you look at the age and you're getting 10 years service out of him, notwithstanding any possible injuries or whatever. And I remember speaking to Xabi Alonso about him last season, and him saying, well, look, everyone is trusted in this team to fulfill their role, but has to fulfill their role within the tactical setup. Whereas he said Flo gets a little bit more of a pass because I trust him to be able to do stuff in the right places at the right time. He gets that little bit of extra freedom. Now, it's fascinating to me because you don't really get many number 10s in the Premier League. Someone like him, I think, really shows us that Arne Slot wants to develop Liverpool into more of his own team this season. So he gradually evolved it from the Jurgen Klopp model. Maybe they were a little bit more circumspect than Klopp's Liverpool the last season, and it really worked out for them. But Wirtz gives them loads more options because we've seen him play as a false 9, we've seen him play as a 10, we've seen him even for Germany in wider positions, cutting inside. But having that ability to drift where he wants, I think if you're looking at the fact that Liverpool maybe don't have the centre forward they want at the moment because they're not getting that out of Darwin, it maybe gives them a front three with a completely different shape. Maybe that turns into a front two, be it Salah and Gakpo, be it Diaz and Salah, whoever it might be. And it takes a lot of the creative load off Salah as well, so he can just score goals and maybe spare himself some of the other running that they don't want him to do so much as he's going into his 30s. But, he was one of the rare bright spots, Wirtz, for Germany during the Nations League as well. He's a great player for his country, so adaptable. I mean, he's costing a lot of money for a reason, but for them to get him to reject Bayern Munich, he obviously really believes in this move. It's just a matter of time before it happens.
Andy, great to speak to you. Don't go away because we want to speak to you in the next hour as well. So much to get through. For the moment, Andy Brassel, thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, so much going on. Yes, so many deals need to get done. That's all the time they have got left, these clubs. We know Chelsea, we know Manchester City are trying to get deals over the line. If they do, you'll find out here first. Well, one deal that is done is Joe Bellingham. He is going to Borussia Dortmund. We'll hear from him as the transfer window countdown continues. See you in a moment. Hello again. We're taking you towards 7 o'clock and that first deadline of the summer. Chelsea and Manchester City getting busy. Before we talk about them, though, let's take a short break from transfers and potential managerial movements to focus on England against Senegal at the City Ground in Nottingham tonight. Rob Dorset is there for us and joins us now. Hi, Rob. Right, who is in need of redemption after that performance at the weekend for England?
Well, there's everybody apart from Noni Madueke is what I would suggest to you, Mike, to be honest. Look, I think the manager has got a big point to prove tonight as well. It feels like the honeymoon period is over for Thomas Tuchel. He got an awful lot of criticism for that team that he picked to play Andorra in Barcelona when England won 1-0 on Saturday. I thought it was a bizarre starting 11 that he picked, and it didn't work, plain and simple. But all of the players, I think, will want to try and prove a point tonight, and so will Thomas Tuchel. And what he's been talking about is that the first mantra that he had when he took the job, he wants England to play with a freedom and play with joy. And he saw all of that disappear against Andorra at the weekend. He said, I feel we're a bit stuck. I see us train with a smile, but not play with a smile. So that's what he's going to try and do today. I think it'll go back to a more tried and tested formation that the players understand better, probably 4-2-3-1, I think. And there will be some changes. We know Harry Kane is going to start up front again. Bayern Munich might not like that idea with the Club World Cup just a few days away. But Ivan Toney, I think, if the game's going well, will come off the bench for his first football under Thomas Tuchel. Bukayo Saka we expect to start his first football under the new manager as well, having missed out with injury. Jude Bellingham was away with a family funeral yesterday. He missed the final training session, so it could well be that he starts on the bench tonight, maybe with the local boy, Morgan Gibbs-White, starting at number 10. We'll look for that. If not, I think Morgan Gibbs-White will come off the bench. And expect the Arsenal duo of Declan Rice and Miles Lewis-Skelly to be reintegrated back into the starting 11 as well. So I think it'll be a stronger England 11. I think it'll be a more settled England 11. But they need a performance. Senegal are a powerful side, a physical side, loads of Premier League players that we know very, very well. They're 19th in the FIFA World Rankings. And remember, this will be the lasting memory for England all the way up till September. Thomas Tuchel doesn't get hold of the players again until well into the start of next season. So he'll want to end on a high, but the players need to end on a high as well if they're to exercise some of those demons, I think, that were there for all to see against Andorra on Saturday night.
You're not wrong. Rob Dorset, our football correspondent, live from Nottingham. Thank you, Rob. Dean, I've got to ask you. He's just said Harry Kane starting. Why?
Because Harry Kane demands to start. He's got a record to set that no one else can ever beat. That's what he'll have as the mindset and as the captain. He won't want to miss the games. And that is difficult for the England manager to drop him, because I think he will demand that he plays. I really don't like the international break when the season's finished. I was part of one myself. That's where I got my England cap, was after the season. It's not particularly nice. The players have had a long season and everyone goes away, and then you want to get them together and have this positivity that Tuchel wants. He is dreaming if he thinks that players are going to come in with this freshness and vibrancy. They're not. They're coming in. Of course, they're professional and you want to play. You always want to play as a player, but you're not going to go into that and be all this and have the life. They got the job done, and I don't expect it to be a classic either tonight, because it is difficult for the players to, and some people, well, you're playing for England, it shouldn't matter. So that's not the case sometimes.
No, indeed. All right, we are going to talk transfers, of course, when we come back. Chelsea trying to get Jamie Gittens over the line, but has he gone? City looking for 2 more players. Will they get it done as well? We are in transfer window countdown mode. If it happens, you'll hear it here. See you in a moment. Hi, good evening. Welcome along to Transfer Window Countdown. We're into the final hour of this early summer window. Manchester City and Chelsea have been using it to strengthen for the Club World Cup. Both still have targets in their sights. Minutes are ticking away, not long to go. Dean Ashton, Kaveh Solokol, Dharmesh Sheth are here to take you through all the news as it happens. Well, Tijani Reinders could complete the City jigsaw tonight. We're hoping to bring you news of his arrival at the Etihad as Pep Guardiola continues to reshape his squad. Time is against Chelsea if they're to get a deal agreed to Jamie Gittens from Borussia Dortmund. Will we see a late breakthrough? Joe Bellingham has left English football and headed to the Bundesliga. Stand by to hear from the teenager who's landed Sunderland a record fee. And beyond today's deadline, there are plenty more deals to be done this summer. Lots of people want Victor Gyökeres, but who'll land him? We'll discuss him and many more as Manchester United and Chelsea circle. Yeah, Chelsea trying to get a deal done. Let's get to Stamford Bridge now. Our reporter James Savundra is there. James, I said they were running out of time in the last hour. They're really running out of time now. Any chance of getting Gittens over the line?
Yeah, Mike, I think it's going to be a bit too short time left for Chelsea in this transfer window. There were hopes this morning they could make two signings in the form of Mike Maignan and Jamie Gittens, but it looks like time has run out. Earlier on this afternoon, we brought you the news that Chelsea had lodged a bid around £42 million with Borussia Dortmund. The clubs have remained in talks over the course of the last few days. They remained in talks today, Dortmund not budging from their valuation of the player, which we understand to be around £55 million. Chelsea have a long-standing interest in Jamie Gittens, but they wanted to remain disciplined. They didn't want to overpay just to get him in time for the Club World Cup. There was a need to get a left winger in, ideally for the Club World Cup, because Jadon Sancho, he's gone back to Manchester United. Mykhailo Mudryk, he's suspended right now. Raheem Sterling isn't in the first team picture, so they were looking to bring in Jamie Gittens early in this window, but they didn't want to overpay for him, and it's definitely something you can see them revisiting once the transfer window opens again, once again on the 16th of June. But it does look like Jamie Gittens will be at the Club World Cup, but we're wearing the yellow of Borussia Dortmund as things stand.
James Savundra, live from Stamford Bridge. Right, from Stamford Bridge, we are going straight to the Etihad. Sani Rudravajula is there for us. And Sani, Chelsea trying to get one deal done, City trying to get two. Where are they with them?
Yeah, well, my phone just reminded me that my screen time is now up to 10 hours. I've been on it continuously across the course of deadline day. Yes, we've got two remaining players that we know deals have been agreed, yet to be announced. Tijani Reinders is the first one, central midfielder for AC Milan, 26 years old, 10 goals. He was a player of the year in midfield in Serie A. That's despite Milan finishing 8th. So a disappointing campaign for the club, but he has excelled, can beat a man, loves to get a shot off, a sort of player that City fans would be very excited to see. That yet to be announced. The other one we're waiting on is Rayan Cherki, right winger, can also play on the left side, has been lighting up Ligue and the Europa League, 20 assists in all for him this season, a brilliant volley on his debut for France as well, so lots of talk around him. We know a deal's been agreed there, and not to say I'm clutching at straws here, Mike, but earlier on today there was a bloke who came and had a chat with us and said he'd been hanging around the training ground players' entrance and he reckoned he'd seen Cherki in the back of a car. Now, if that is true, it would actually make sense, because where we are just over the road, where the players do go for like the player announcements and all the social media videos and photos that we see happening. So if it is going to happen, then, and if it was Cherki, then yes, it could be on the cards, but time is ticking for those two deals to come through. We do know Marcus Bettinelli's been announced, third choice keepers come in, Ryan Aït-Nouri yesterday, and we know Pep Guardiola has a new assistant manager in Pep Lijnders, who's come in after a spell managing RB Salzburg, and before that was the right-hand man for Jurgen Klopp. But these two deals yet to be done. Time is ticking.
It is, but Sani, as long as a bloke wanders up and tells you, then that's good for me. Thank you for the moment. Kaveh, I want to go back to Chelsea first. Gittens, what's your understanding of where the deal is?
I think the deal is almost certainly off now. The last bit of information we had was sort of guiding us very much towards the next transfer window, which incredibly reopens on Monday. So the information we were getting is Jamie Gittens is a long-term target. We don't have to sign him this evening. We can sign him next week if we want. We know that Borussia Dortmund want to sell the player. Why should we overpay for a player who is up for sale and for a player who wants to move to Chelsea? The main transfer window is open until the end of August. OK, the Club World Cup is important, but Chelsea don't have to break the bank to get in a player who may be a squad player to begin with just for the group stages of the Club World Cup. Our colleagues in Germany, actually, are just reporting in the last few minutes that apparently Jamie Gittens himself is not very happy with what has transpired today. I think we've been seeing some pictures of him training with Borussia Dortmund.
Well, training on his own.
Yeah, to me it looked like, perhaps Dean knows more than I do, but those pictures look like he was training on his own. And our colleagues at Germany are saying that he has just sped off at very high speed, looking very disappointed. I don't know how you can tell through the tinted windows of the kind of cars that footballers drive these days. But the reports are that he's now left the training ground, and it looks like he is not particularly happy with what has happened today.
Carve, you were mentioning the other day about, I think there are about 3 different windows, but there's also a registration period in the middle of the Club World Cup where players can join for the second half of that tournament, but they can't play for 2 different teams in the same tournament. I've got that right, yeah?
Yeah, so what happens is the window closes at 7 o'clock tonight, but then the window opens next Monday. But if you sign a player next Monday, that is too late for him to play for you in the group stages of the Club World Cup. But there is a registration period opening in the Club World Cup after the group stages from the 27th of June to the 3rd of July. So technically Chelsea could sign Gittens next week. He couldn't play for them in the group stages. Then they could wait until the 27th of June when the registration period for the Club World Cup opens, register him for the Club World Cup, then he could play for them in the knockout stages of the Club World Cup. But if Borussia Dortmund decide he's a Dortmund player and he plays for Dortmund in the group stages of the Club World Cup, then he wouldn't be able to play for Chelsea because you can't play for more than one club in the Club World Cup.
So is it in Dortmund's interest, if these talks are going to continue between the 2 clubs, to maybe, if they're going to take Gittens to the Club World Cup, take him but not play him?
Exactly. If they think that Chelsea really want to sign him in the next couple of weeks and Chelsea really want him to play for them in the Club World Cup, it would be in Dortmund's interest not to have him registered or not have him play for them in the Club World Cup, because then he would be perhaps a little less attractive for Chelsea. But I think we're getting a little bit carried away with the importance of the Club World Cup. Let's wait and see how big a tournament it turns out to be, because a couple of weeks ago we were talking about the fact that FIFA shouldn't be holding the Club World Cup. Players were knackered. What were we doing, having another tournament in a already congested fixture calendar? Whereas now we're talking about possible transfers and players being left out of squad so they could move to another club. We're doing exactly what FIFA want us to do, which is to talk up the Club World Cup.
But what we're not talking about is the player himself. He's 20 years old. This could be a dream move for him. What he's being told probably is that this could happen and could have happened today. Therefore, he might be training on his own, ready to just keep fit but go at a moment's notice. And then maybe that would have been pulled back. You're an asset as a player. That's what you are to a business. And he'll just sit there now and think, well what's happened? Am I going to play for Dortmund now in the Club World Cup? Am I going to end up playing for Chelsea? Where's my mindset now? Have I got to be super professional and make sure now I just come in and continue, but I've got this in the back of my mind? It is difficult when you're 20 to try and compute all of that and then try and act in the right way, which is probably why he's got in his car and just gone.
It's interesting that, because when you say you're just an asset to a club, is that experience telling you that? Because when you were 20, did you feel valued? And then, like Gittens, you probably feel not so valued at the moment.
Of course, because ultimately neither club, it's not about the interest of the player. They're not thinking, oh, I wonder what Jamie Gittens really wants in all of this. They don't. It's a business transaction. You know, Dortmund want to get the most money at the right time. Chelsea want to spend as little as possible on the player at the right time, and then it's about the player once those things are met. Of course, you can have an influence as a player as much as you can, but it's difficult when you're that young.
I think this will become clearer in the next couple of hours because Dortmund should release their squad for the Club World Cup, so we'll be able to find out whether Jamie Gittens is in their squad. I think if he is, he'd be flying to New York. Their first game, I think, is next Tuesday in New Jersey. And also, I'm very interested in this media briefing that the sporting director of Borussia Dortmund is supposed to be holding this evening. He's going to be speaking to the German journalists, and hopefully, of course, I'm sure they will ask him about what's happened with Jamie Gittens and Chelsea today.
We also heard from our reporter at Manchester City, Dharmesh. We're 6-11 now. Should Manchester City fans be getting a little bit twitchy that those deals haven't happened yet?
Yeah, simply because it's nearly 7 o'clock. There's 49 minutes to go of this first summer transfer window to try and get these deals over the line. So if you look, 48 minutes, thank you, Carver, yeah. So, yes, naturally you will, but the information we're getting over the past few hours, over the past week, is that the intention was to get these deals over the line before this deadline. We know that Rayan Cherki managed to get over the line yesterday. That one's done and dusted. It's these other two that we're waiting for that Sani was mentioning before. Rayan Cherki from Lyon, which is worth around £34 million, and Tiani Reinders from AC Milan, which could be worth up to £58 million, including performance-related add-ons. And I know we touched on it in the last hour about how much City have been spending and how big this rebuild looks. I actually got the figure slightly wrong because in January, the figure that they actually spent was closer to above £175 million. And if you look at what they're trying to do in this summer's transfer window before even the Club World Cup begins, so we can see there, £176 million spent. You know, Omar Mamouche, Nico Gonzalez, two of the biggest signings that they did in that summer and in that January transfer window. And now you're looking at a situation where you could be spending over £120 million if all of these deals go through as well, because these ones, yes, those are the initial fees. They could rise depending on performance-related add-ons. So Manchester City really are looking at this and thinking, we need to do a lot of work. There are a lot of players in that squad who have grown old together. We need to refresh, we need to rebuild. And of course, Pep Guardiola's just signed that contract that takes him until 2027, so he'll be overseeing that.
Sounds like City mean business. Right. Players not the only ones on the move. Tottenham are after the Brentford manager, Thomas Frank, of course. Michael Bridge is at the club's training ground and joins us now. Michael, how close are Spurs to getting Bridge over the line? No, you're Bridge. Frank over the line.
Yeah. Don't worry, it's a long day, a busy day here on Sky Sports News player-wise. But as you say, a big managerial transfer is on the cards as well. And you're asking about how close it is. I think in terms of Thomas Frank to Tottenham, very close indeed. Two reasons for that. As we've reported over the last few days, Spurs had no second choice, no third choice. Yes, names have been discussed over the last few months, but it was and has always been Thomas Frank. And Thomas Frank wants to make this move to Tottenham Hotspur. But of course, it's not just managers and head coaches coming in and going out. It's head coaches, it's coaches and assistant coaches leaving as well. We've already seen Ryan Mason leave for West Brom as the new West Bromwich Albion head coach. But there's talk of Thomas Frank wanting to bring in a few of his own people as well from Brentford. Justin Cochrane, very, very highly regarded at Brentford within the England setup as well. He had a few years here at Spurs as well. And Andreas Georgsson, a specialised set-piece head coach, a specialised set-piece coach who's been at Manchester United, a Lillestrøm manager, knows Thomas Frank well from a brief spell at Brentford as well. So I think in terms of compensation, that's still being talked about at the moment, not in terms of specifically Thomas Frank and Spurs, but maybe Thomas Frank and maybe one or two more. These things take a little bit of time. There's no managerial deadline day, and Spurs will get their new head coach, and it looks like Brentford will find a new head coach. But I heard Dean Ashton there in the studio, Mike. I've got to ask him because I see him at Spurs quite a lot. Dino, what do you reckon? Ange Postecoglou leaving, in for Thomas Frank, good move?
I think it is. It's, you know, he's a coach that's developed a lot at Brentford. I think the big thing with Thomas Frank as well is that development of players. You know, Tottenham have now gone down that route of bringing in a lot of young players. And ultimately, I think that's going to be what the manager's required at Tottenham. But the worry is, of course, the expectation is so different to what it was at Brentford. And so that's going to be the big call, is what the players think of someone like Thomas Frank without that maybe trophies behind him coming in, and can he develop those players that are already there. But it's just nice to see you finally calm down from that final.
All right, I'm going to move on. What's interesting is Brennan Johnson and Archie Gray, very highly regarded by Brentford and Thomas Frank. They agreed a fee with Leeds for Archie Gray last year, so they're prepared to pay big money for him. So they've got Archie Gray. Thomas Frank will have Archie Gray, he'll have Brennan Johnson, but also, you're right to bring this up, this is what I was thinking about. He won't be able to rest players like Ange Postecoglou did a couple of players in the Europa League. It'll be Champions League Thursdays, League Saturdays, Tuesdays. It's going to be really, really tough. So it'll be interesting to see how he juggles. But what an opportunity he's got to win a trophy already. The Super Cup. Yes, I know it's PSG, but he's going to hit the ground running already. And he's got a North London derby in Hong Kong.
Michael Bridge, live from Spurs training ground. And just to confirm, despite what I said at the beginning of that, Michael Bridge is not going to be the next manager of Tottenham Hotspur. All right, we're going to take a break. Now, Arsenal looking for more firepower this summer. Is Real Madrid's Rodrigo the man for them? We will discuss that next. See you in a moment. That is how long is left for Manchester City to get 2 signings over the line and Chelsea to get 1. If they do, they've got to get on with it. In the meantime, Manchester United have got a little bit more time because, of course, they've got until the end of the window, which is September 1st. I want to talk Manchester United with you, Dean. They've been linked with Gyökeres from Sporting. Would he be the answer for them?
I think he could be. I think he's probably one of the best I've seen since Didier Drogba in terms of leading the line as a lone striker. It's such a difficult role. It's really changed over the last decade or so of what's required of you as an out-and-out striker on your own. Goals maybe haven't been as important to a lot of teams that play with that player. That player, has to create space for the wide players to be the threat. But what he brings is this incredible physicality, ridiculous work ethic, developed his game at Coventry, which I saw signs of him leading the line so well with a team that wasn't at the top of the league, by the way. And then he's gone to Portugal and he's been sensational. And he's at that age where he's just really starting to understand that role, probably now feels the stature that you maybe need to go to a club like Manchester United where the expectation is so big. I honestly think it could be perfect in terms of what they require from that player. I think he's one of the best, certainly in Europe, at leading the line on his own.
Is there a worry, though, because he's never played in the Premier League, that it might not be the place for him?
No, I don't think so. I think he's played in England. The Championship is no easy league to play in, and the requirements physically for that league that you've got to go through. So I don't, and I think the development and how quickly he's developing, and more probably still to come, I don't see why you wouldn't just look at him. And I'm surprised there's not more clubs that are clamouring to get his signature, because I think he's only going to get better. And that position in particular now requires a certain talent to lead the line, I think, anyway.
Dharmesh, when he played for Coventry, you could have got him for £21 million. Why didn't clubs come in? Is it just snobbishness?
I wouldn't say snobbishness, but how many top Premier League clubs actually go to the Championship and recruit?
That's my point.
Sometimes you'll find that they would want that player, if they're keeping an eye on them, they almost take that calculated risk. We'll have to pay a little bit more, but we're going to need to see a little bit more, because the Championship might not be enough for him to make that jump to a top Premier League team and into the Champions League. It's the Portuguese league, number one. His record has been incredible, but also you've got to remember that he was scoring goals in the Champions League, scored a hat-trick against Manchester City as well in the Champions League last season. So he has shown that he can do it at that level. And if you're looking at United in particular, clearly Ruben Amorim is a huge admirer of him. He's worked under Amorim before. He knows that formation. So for United, you're asking Dean the question, is he the answer? I mean, United have got a lot of work to do in all areas of the pitch, but if he wants to play in that formation and continue with that formation, and we've got no reason to believe that he won't, because he's very stubborn in that formation, is Amorim, you would think that someone like Victor Gyökeres would be absolutely perfect, because he knows the manager and he knows that formation back to front. So it would be a fantastic signing if United can get it over the line. There was all this talk about he wanted to play Champions League football. Ruben Amorim was very, very pointed in one of his news conferences when he said, I only want players who want to play for Manchester United. It doesn't matter if we've got European football or not. If players are saying, I want to move to a Champions League club, I don't want that player to come to United. And I think he meant that regardless of whether United were in European football or not. He wanted them to come because it's Manchester United. So it'll be a test now of United's pull. But I just wonder whether the likes of Cunha and possibly Brian Mbeumo coming as well, whether that kind of signing can attract a player. I don't know if Dean's got a comment on that. When you see, if you're 50-50 about joining a club and then you see the kind of recruitment a club is making and you think, oh, right, they're going somewhere here. I want to be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's normally one of the first questions you ask when you go and see the club and the manager is what are your ideas? Certainly as a slightly arrogant striker, you want to know who is going to supply you, and whether you're looking to bring in bring in other players, or is it going to be the players that are currently there? I mean, there are so many other facets that you think about when you're making a move, but as a striker, certainly, I think it is more of a draw to any player if you're seeing an Mbeumo being signed and a Cunha and those creative players, and the club are looking to improve massively as well with that.
Do Manchester United still have that pull?
I think they do, of course, yeah, because of the history of the club. And also, you don't know whether any of these players have grown up and when they've watched English football, Manchester United have been their side. And ultimately, they can still pay the big money. And, I'm not ashamed to say it, that you think of those things. If you've got two clubs looking at you and one of those is offering you a lot more money, an extra year, maybe guaranteeing you that you're going to start games. Those things are important to a player still.
Should be said here, United have made initial contacts via intermediaries over Victor Gyökeres. So there hasn't been any club-to-club contact as far as we're aware at this stage. And a lot of people are saying, how can they afford Cunha, who's already at the club, Mbeumo, who is going to cost the thick end of £60 million as well, and Victor Gyökeres, who's going to cost over £60 million as well. Well, I don't think Manchester United, despite all their financial and much publicised financial issues, are going into a transfer window with £0 to spend. They will have a certain budget, which we understand to be covered by Cunha and Mbeumo, and then maybe they will have to make sales to be able to fund a deal for someone like Gyökeres. But if you look at the players that they're signing in Cunha and Mbeumo, is that almost a message as well to the current players who are there, who could have played in the number 10 positions? Rashford, Sancho, Anthony, Garnacho, thanks, but we're going to listen to offers for you. And I'm sure United are expecting offers for these players to be able to fund the rest of their window.
Carve, what are the optics on this? A lot of people who work behind the scenes at United have lost their jobs, and yet they're going in for these players. What does it look like to you, that?
It's a very good question. I think the thing, though, is that with football clubs, especially clubs as big as Manchester United, they need to sign players. It's part of their business model. They've got to invest in the transfer market. It's what they do. They need players to put on the pitch to win things. So if I was somebody who worked at Manchester United and I'd been made redundant after I'd worked there for decades and decades and decades, yes, I would have mixed feelings this summer when I see that they are spending millions and millions of pounds on new players. But that is the way the modern football business works. I think Ineos have gone into Manchester United and brought in management consultants, and they've been told that, look, these are the cuts you can make going forward. The club needs to be much more efficient, and to do that, we have to make these people redundant. It's really sad what's happening at Manchester United and what's been happening there for a long time. But Ineos feel they have a plan to make things better. It's going to take time. It's not going to take just one window, but they believe that they're on the right track. And if you're a United fan, I suppose you've got no option but to put your faith in them.
Dean, how long has Amorim got, do you think, to turn things around?
I think a lot does depend on the recruitment, the ins and outs, because it's clear that he's trying to fight against certain players being at the club and wanting to change that playing squad to suit his style. And he's been so clear about that. He's even said in interviews that the ownership knew that this was the way I wanted to play and I am not going to deviate from that. Well, if the ownership believe in him, then they try and give him the players that will suit that system. Then if we all see that and we see the players that have come in that he can use in that system, then, after 3 or 4 months, if you're seeing nothing at all when you've spent that money and helped the manager, then of course the pressure's going to be on because of the expectation of the football club. And he'll know that, though.
That is how long they have got in the first window of the summer. 28 minutes and a little bit. Manchester City, Chelsea, what are you doing? Are you going to get these deals over the line? If they do, we'll bring it to you here in Transfer Window Countdown. So what's going on then? Sesko, where will he go? Arsenal made a big play for him. They've told us they're hanging on for him. Is he good enough? And are Spurs going to get Thomas Frank? We've got a man at the Spurs training ground who'll tell us as soon as that one's done as well. See you in a moment. Been waiting on news from Spurs all day. There is breaking news from Spurs. Michael Bridge has it. Michael.
Well, Mike, look, throughout the day we told you it's not necessarily just about the arrival of Thomas Frank, it's about potential departures from a previous regime and potential coaches for Thomas Frank. I understand the Chief Football Officer, Scott Munn, Assistant Head Coaches Mili Jedinak, Nick Montgomery and Sergio Raimundo are expected to leave the club. Of course, they were under Ange Postecoglou's. Scott Munn played a big part in Ange Postecoglou's appointment, so it looks like big changes in terms of outgoings for Spurs, and of course discussions over compensation for Thomas Frank and potential coaching staff for him will continue this evening.
Michael Bridge, live from Spurs training ground. Thanks, Michael. Right, Dharmesh, we're getting towards the end of this window. Deal sheets, those two words which send a shiver down my spine. Tell us.
Yeah, we were wondering whether there was a deal sheet scenario with this transfer window. You asked me, yes, you did. And I can confirm that there is a deal sheet scenario here. And basically, it's the same as we experienced in the last transfer window and every transfer window as well when it comes to deadline day. And that means that between, in this case, 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock, a deal sheet needs to be given in to the authorities to say that there's an intention to get a deal done. So basically, it just buys a little bit more time, but they have to have enough intention in that deal sheet to show that they want to complete this deal. So it has to have the signatures of both clubs and the player involved in this deal sheet. So from 5 o'clock until 7, that's the 2-hour grace period they have to hand in this deal sheet. If it is handed in and it's all clear and all legal, all above board, they will then have until 9 o'clock tonight, a further 2 hours, to completely complete any kind of deal. So maybe some of these deals that we have been talking about with Manchester City, with Chelsea, even though we haven't heard of them being completed, who knows, there might have been a deal sheet involved in them.
OK, so extra time for us. Right. We are going to go back to our European football expert, Andy Brassel, now, who was with us in the last hour. Andy, I want to talk Victor Gyökeres. Lots of talk that the league in Portugal, not as strong as others. Is he the answer for Manchester United?
Well, I think you can say quite honestly that the league in Portugal is not as strong as the very best in Europe. However, I think, as Dean was saying before, the numbers are extraordinary. For club and country, 63 goals last season, a ton of assists as well. He scored them in the Champions League, as Manchester City can tell you. He scored them for his national team alongside Alexander Isak. And I think really, if we're looking at what he can do for Manchester United or any other team who want to sign him, it's the fact that he can adapt to so many situations. He can play up front on his own. He can play in that too with Isak. And really, I think the partnership that they've had for Sweden so far, even though it's just in the early stages, shows how good both of them are. For them to be able to adapt and play to two up front when they're both alphas, I think is really hard and deserves a lot of credit on both sides. Now, Gyökeres, we talked about how he could handle the physical side of the Premier League. That was never in doubt. Technically, he's developed so much. I think if we're looking for a reason why he might go to Manchester United, that reason is two words: Ruben Amorim. Amorim absolutely begged the board at Sporting to sign him. He wouldn't leave them alone until they did sign him, and they sanctioned a club record deal to get him on board. So there's clearly an enormous amount of trust between those. So if you can get over where United are sports-wise at the moment, I think it's very much still on the table. Now, he's someone who won't be bullied by defenders. He can hold it up. He can run the channels. He's good finishing it with in front of him. He scores all types of goals with both feet. And he's got enormous confidence. And if he was going to Manchester United, he would be playing for a coach who he knows has turned him into a superstar.
Yeah, we compared his figures with Benjamin Sesko's, and Sesko's paled in comparison. Are Arsenal, who are chasing Sesko, are they looking at the right player?
I think that's a really good question. If I was in their position, I would be going for Gyökeres every day of the week. He's more developed. There's no doubt about that. Now, Arsenal like to do things differently. We know that. And Šeško has made sense for them for a long time. If you're looking at someone who's going to fit immediately, he's of such a high technical level. And when he was compared, as he inevitably was, after succeeding him at RB Salzburg to Erling Haaland, there was no comparison. Firstly, because Šeško was far more useful without the ball and far more useful outside the penalty box, but also because he's nowhere near the goal scorer of Erling Haaland. And will he ever be? I think is the question you have to ask. Now, he has improved his goal scoring this season, got 20 for Leipzig in all competitions. And of course, we know the Bundesliga is a really good competition. But we're looking at someone who's improving as a goal scorer. And that's, I guess, someone you would put in the same bracket, even though they're very different types of forward players. Bradley Barcola, for example, who PSG believe at some point will score them 30 goals in the season. And maybe they're right. And maybe that's the gamble you're taking on Šeško. And you know he'll click with the guys around him from minute one. But for me, don't Arsenal need someone different, someone from outside the tent, someone who's got the sort of skill set that they don't have already? Now, look, I think going in for a developing player for that sort of money, even though he's developing fast, feels like a lot more of a risk. This would feel more like an Arteta signing than a Berta signing, because we know Andrea Berta likes to go for out-and-out centre forward. So I wonder if that's been the subject of some discussion behind the scenes at Arsenal. I love Šeško, but I'd far prefer Gyökeres.
That's really interesting. Chelsea walked away from the deal for Mike Maignan, the France #1 keeper. Do you think, given their goalkeeping problems, they'll walk back into that deal at some stage?
They really should. I mean, he'd be an absolute game changer for them. If we're talking about Chelsea being genuinely competitive at the top of the Premier League next season, making some sort of dent in the Champions League, we know there's a lot of talent there, although not in the goalkeeping department, I think it's fair to say, where there's numbers more than there is talent. Now, Maignan is not only someone who would be a massive step up in terms of quality, in terms of what they've got goalkeeping-wise, because he's one of the very best goalkeepers in the world. But in terms of experience, because we know he'd be the oldest player, 29 going on 30, going into that Chelsea team, he's a real leader as well. And he has been since day one with France and with Milan. And he's had to be, because he came up a difficult way, came through the PSG academy and they rejected him, which I suspect they regret. Did really well at Lille. Then when he went to Milan, similarly, Scudetto winner, did well in the Champions League. And I think is what he's done with France that's really the key. You think of what Chelsea are missing in terms of leadership to take them to that next level on the pitch, to traverse those difficult periods. And there were definitely periods where it looked like they were going to miss the Champions League for all the good things that they'd done under Maresca last season. Maignan is the guy who stands up in the France dressing room and says to Mbappe or says to Griezmann when he was still playing, that's not good enough. What are you going to do better? Not every player would do that. And I think to have someone who doesn't talk all the time, but when he speaks, people listen, that would be another enormously valuable asset for Chelsea.
Massively. I like the phrase you used earlier, outside the tent. So give us those players who are outside the tent in this window, the ones who maybe haven't had that much of a mention, who may get a move.
Well, look, I think we started with Milan there when we're talking about Mike Maignan. Very, very difficult season for them last time around. They'll be looking to create some collateral. So I think you're looking at Rafael Leão, who we know can be one of the best players on the world in his day. Drove not one, but two Portuguese coaches mad on the way out of the San Siro last season. I think a move for him is really, really important. Milan are going to have to come down from his 175 million euro. That's right, 175 million euro release clause if they're to move him on. He's just not consistent enough. Same for Theo Hernandez, one of their other high earners. It looks like he could be on the move back to Atletico Madrid, which would be an interesting little circle for them. And, you know, I think a lot of people will be looking at Milan and thinking, what can we do with a couple of those players? I think elsewhere, we have to look at if it really falls apart post Xabi Alonso at Leverkusen. And now we're talking about a lot of teams at the moment are looking for a left back. Why not Alex Grimaldo? He's been one of the best left backs, wing backs in Europe over the last couple of seasons. And I think given that he really had that emotional connection with Xabi Alonso, them both being Spanish and really him reviving his career when no one really wanted him when he was on the way out from Benfica, it feels to me like it might be the time for Grimaldo to move on. Someone's got to have a punt for him. He's just so gifted on the ball, brilliant set piece taker, can work in a 4 or a 5. Go get him someone.
Oh, Andy Brassel, as always, great pleasure to speak to you. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Right, Dean, I love that. He said if he was Arsenal, he'd be going for Gyökeres, not Šeško. What do you think?
I guess you've got more of the finished article, probably more of a player that looks like he really knows what he is and feels like he could go in there and walk in like he's going to be the main man for you.
Don't Arsenal need that?
Yes, they do. And I just wonder with Šeško, how similar to Havertz is he? You know, Havertz has played that role now for quite a period, and Šeško, but it's quite difficult to compare them because of the age difference. You know, 27 for Gyökeres, 22 for Šeško. That's 5 years of development when you're looking at your recruitment and how important that is. And I've seen enough from Šeško to say he could easily lead the line for Arsenal. And it's very easy to look at him at Leipzig, a team that maybe isn't winning every single game and dominating every single game. Put put yourself as a striker in a team that creates chances all the time, you might see a totally different player in Šeško. That's the decision you've got to make.
Right. Thanks, Dean. Right. There is not long to go. We are getting near to that deadline. We have a sneaky feeling there may be some very late deals done. You've got to stay with us because it could well happen. And of course, away from the signings, England have got to do better. That is without doubt after the game against Andorra. We know Harry Kane's going to play. Who else will Thomas Tuchel go for? And will England improve? See you in a moment. .9 minutes. That is all these clubs have got to get deals over the line for this first window of the summer. 9 minutes. They do it, you'll hear it here. Right, I want to go back to Arsenal. We spoke about Benjamin Šeško in the last hour and a possible move there. What's happened with Zubimendi? Is it happening?
Yeah, it's happening. Yeah, there's been lots of talk, particularly in the Spanish press, about maybe Real Madrid trying to get one over on Arsenal and sign Martin Zubimendi. The couple of people that I've spoken to, a couple of sources in Spain have said, no, Real Madrid are not in for him. He's 100% going to Arsenal. It's the same noises we're getting here as well. We expect him to have a medical very, very soon. Everything else about that deal seems to have been agreed in principle. It's a £51 million release clause that Arsenal will pay to Real Sociedad to get this one over the line. Personal terms agreed in principle as well for the Spain international. And there's nothing to suggest that he won't be an Arsenal player come the start of pre-season. So every expectation that Martin Zubimendi will become an Arsenal player.
Dean, we started this programme and we said Real Madrid were irresistible. He plays for Spain. Why wouldn't he want to go there?
We're not sure they want him.
Quite sure, yeah. I think it's a case of is it definitely there for him to make that decision? Because it is such a difficult decision. Ultimately, it would be a magnificent signing for Arsenal. I think in that midfield area, I think we've seen a bit more freedom from Rice. I think we need to see more of that from Declan Rice being able to advance. Zubimendi would be that type of player you'd want. Defensively, obviously, very, very good. But in terms of that build-up play that's so important to free up Odegaard and Rice and the likes, I think is going to be important going forwards for Arsenal. So I think it would be a terrific signing for them.
Do Arsenal have to win something next season?
They needed to win something this season, ultimately. But can we see a development in the team? Yes. But how long do you keep seeing the development without the end product of a trophy? Not much longer. But you can see the development of the team. Can Arsenal and the ownership just give Arteta that little bit more? Stop being so stubborn with that striking position. I think if they get that, I do think it's just the missing piece, really, to what they've built.
Just on Zubimendi as well, we're talking about, was there this talk about Real Madrid? I think Zubimendi might have made up his mind that Arsenal was going to be his destination last summer. Because if you remember, Liverpool had that deal agreed, and then he decided he was going to stay at Real Sociedad. That was partly because it was very difficult for him to leave Real Sociedad, and we know what it is for these players from the Basque country to leave clubs like Real Sociedad and Athletic Bilbao. But the information that I've got as well from this potential deal is that Arsenal made their interest known last summer, that they wanted to exercise this release clause for Martin Zubimendi, but they couldn't do it last summer. Because if you think about their squad, they had Jorginho in that squad and they had Thomas Partey in that squad. Now, they're still in talks with Thomas Partey over a new contract. Jorginho has now left. So there was always going to be a priority position for them. And I think the relationship that Mikel Arteta has with certain players, that might have influenced Martin Zubimendi to think, you know what, I might just wait here because there's an opportunity for me to go to Arsenal. So the whole Real Madrid issue, I don't know whether that was put into the press maybe to hurry Arsenal along, but I think Arsenal were pretty relaxed throughout the whole situation in that they knew they were going to exercise that release clause. They knew that they'd sorted out these personal terms. It's just a case of getting the medical done and signing on the contract.
Do Arsenal, Carve, just need a couple of tweaks to be able to challenge? Because we're seeing Manchester City with a massive rebuild.
Yeah,
Arsenal just a little bit?
Yeah, obviously they finished second, and the team who are ahead of them, Liverpool, are going to strengthen. The teams behind them are going to strengthen as well. So they do need to refresh their squad. Every club needs to do that in the Premier League every summer window, because if you don't, your rivals are going to overtake you.
What do you think, Dean? Do you think, we've said that they need to win something. How much do they need to add to their squad to win something?
I think it's making sure that when they do have those injuries to key players like Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard and the striker, that you have the depth to then turn to players that come in and don't weaken your side too much. I think Manchester City were the best exponents of that over the last 5 or 6 years when he made changes that even we were sort of raising our eyebrow. Why would you leave Kevin De Bruyne out? Well, Bernardo came in and was magnificent. So they didn't drop that, and Arsenal aren't there yet. And the amount of games I watched, they were defensively magnificent at times, created the chances, missed the chances. We're all saying the same thing. And at the very, very elite level, it's those players that make the difference. It is in those key moments against the likes of PSG when they had those chances to score early on in that second leg, they didn't take them. and that is what will cost them eventually.
Yeah, indeed. All right, look at that. 3 minutes, just 3 minutes and a bit to go, and we will find out who has done the deals this evening. Quick word on Chelsea, Dean. Have they had a real change in strategy? Because Carve said earlier they're really relaxed in this window. That doesn't, relaxed and Chelsea in transfer windows doesn't seem to go together.
No, I mean, last summer was so chaotic. I thought Maresca handled it brilliantly because he had to make some big decisions and leave some big names out of that playing squad, and then the club had to decide what to do with those players. There's probably still that follow-on even this summer, but it looks like they've maybe got things in order, and they've got a young, exciting squad. And you know, we talked about Mike Maignan there. Maybe that bit of experience now that they can drop in for Maresca to help those young players develop even more. I actually thought he overachieved this season with what he did, with the start that they made in that transfer and what he had to do to then get to the end season with what they have. I thought he overachieved.
Carvo, you know Chelsea well. What do you make of the way they're going about their business in this window?
I think it's easy to be carried away. Sometimes when you read a lot and follow social media, and there's obviously lots of developments about Chelsea could be signing France #1 goalkeeper Mike Maignan, you get sort of whipped up in a frenzy and you want it to happen. The same with Jamie Gittens. You're like, Jamie Gittens, is talks, bids. The bid's been made, it's rejected, there's interest, there's that. And you get whipped up into a frenzy and you want the deal to happen. But sometimes you've just got to take a step back and say, OK, is Mike Maignan really that good at the moment? What's been happening to him at AC Milan? And what's his injury record like? Has he been making a lot of mistakes? Jamie Gittens, OK, he's a good player, but is he worth £50 million? Why has he been dropped by Dortmund? Why has he only scored 1 goal this year? These are all the kinds of discussions that clubs are having, and they're not just going to be swayed by what's trending on social media. I know we're part of that as well. There's an enormous amount of interest in transfers, but just because a transfer has been talked about doesn't mean a club is going to actually do that deal.
What do you think, Dharmesh? Do you think Chelsea need to do more business, and the way their business has changed over this window, maybe?
I think not too long ago, when Chelsea were embarking on a particular transfer window, it was almost looked like the cynics were out, weren't they, when they were saying, why are they handing these guys 7-year contracts? And now it seems, after the season they've had, maybe we should be praising Chelsea for the way they've handled it.
Maybe we should. All right, listen, the window is nearly closed. Look at that. 20 seconds to go. We were waiting on Chelsea to do a deal. We were waiting on Manchester City to do 2 deals. Have they managed to get them over the line? That is the situation. 5 seconds. We will see. Well, I can tell you, deal has been done. Look at that. Let's go straight to the Etihad. Sani Radjavajula is there for us. Sani, what have you got?
Manchester City have done it. They have signed Rayan Cherki from Olympique Lyonnais. It is a 5-year deal for one of the hottest properties in European football. Been lighting up for Lyon. We've seen him in the Europa League. 20 assists this season. International debut for France. Only went and set up a goal and a volley as well. So he has signed for Manchester City. It's a £34 million deal. 21 years old. We still haven't got any more news on Tijani Reinders. That was the other player we were looking at, central midfielder for AC Milan. But in time for the Club World Cup, Rayan Cherki is a Manchester City player.
Sani, live from the Etihad, thank you very much. Dean, Cherki, does that send shivers down the rest of the Premier League that City have got that one over the line as well?
I think with how quickly they're trying to fill that De Bruyne-shaped hole with someone of the talent of Cherki, I think is a big sign. It's a big sign that they've moved very quickly. They want to fill that void that they're clearly going to have with the talent of Kevin De Bruyne, but he has got the talent. He's already shown it for Lyon, and he's certainly already shown it for France. That goal the other night was pretty special. and probably got the excitement levels even higher for Manchester City, and to get it done so quickly, and we're going to get to see him so soon as well.
Carve, what do you make of the way City have done their business?
Well, we're not really used to City sort of doing this much business. Sort of great volume of transfers in January and also so far this summer. But their chairman, Khaldoon Al-Mubarak, came out when he was interviewed by their in-house media a couple of weeks ago, and he held his hands up and he said, look, we made mistakes in the transfer window. We didn't sign players. We really should have signed players, especially last summer. And I think they've been trying to address that. One thing I would say about Cherki is it looks like a great deal at £34 million because a player as good as he is, the sort of flashes of him that I've seen and how highly he's rated in France and the kind of other big clubs who are looking at him, that is a really good price to pay for him. I don't know if it's something to do with the financial issues at Lyon. Those have been sort of well documented. Maybe it was because of that Lyon felt like they had to sell him this summer. But I think potentially he could be a really exciting player to watch. You know, when the season starts, the Premier League starts next season. When is it? Like 2.5 months' time.
Not long.
He's the kind of player you'll be wanting to see just how good he is.
Listen, with regard to Manchester City, we were expecting, or they were trying to get 4 deals over the line, weren't they? Rayan Cherki from Wolves went through yesterday.
Done.
Marcus Bettinelli.
Done.
Rayan Cherki.
Done.
And now Tierney Reinders is the one that we're waiting for. Now, I've just sent in a text to find out if the Reinders deal is the subject of a deal sheet. Remember, I was explaining before that they had to go in between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock to give them 2 extra hours because Manchester City haven't announced anything on Tierney Reinders as yet. It'll be interesting to see if they needed to do a deal sheet for that particular deal. I'm just waiting to find out if that has actually gone in or not.
OK, that could be a bit of extra time for us. I'm quite good in extra time. You've got the legs. Let's talk Chelsea then.
Can I just ask Darmish one question?
Oh, no.
With the Reinders deal, so
yes,
if Manchester City have put a deal sheet in by 5 minutes ago,
yes,
then and the deal sheet, everything's right on it and correct, and the signatures and everything's in the right place, then there's still 2 hours for them to actually complete the deal.
correct.
OK.
Just asking the questions.
So it could well happen. Chelsea, we haven't heard from them yet. Will they feel like they failed because they haven't got deals that they wanted to get over?
I can't believe this. Chelsea get criticised when they sign too many players, and now you're having a go. You're having a go at them for not signing any players.
Well, what do you think?
I think they did really well because they signed Liam Delap.
Yeah.
Lots of other clubs wanted to sign him. That was the priority, and I think, you know, he ticks a lot of boxes for them because he's young, he's developing, he fits into the wage structure. It was only £30 million. They may sign another striker as well, but I think that was the priority this window, and that is the one they're most delighted about. So much so that they want him to play in the Club World Cup for them instead of playing in the under-21 Euros, and he was happy to do that.
Well, let's ask the striker. What do you think of him?
I think they'll be frustrated though with obviously Jadon Sancho and Mudryk not available, to not maybe have got, if they are interested, of course, to not have got that done before the Club World Cup, because again, who is going to play that role? Will it be Neto on the left, or Palmer, or whoever they decide to play on that side, Madueke, all more suited to the right hand side? So there'll be a bit of frustration, surely.
Do you think Liam Delap made the right decision? Because we were being told that he was really torn about whether to go to Manchester United or go to Chelsea or go to Newcastle. He had so many options. It was a really difficult decision for him. Do you think it's the right decision?
I mean, obviously only time will tell. I think he will have looked at Nicholas Jackson and thought, I think I can take you on and be better than you. And that's what you've got to think. You've got to have that inner confidence. If you're going to a club like Chelsea, where there is going to be competition, you have to look at that and think, I'm going to get in ahead of you. And he'll probably feel that, and that'll be a nice tussle now to see who starts under Maresca in that position.
Have you been impressed with him when you've seen him?
I have, yeah. I mean, I think there's so much more development from Lyon Delap. But in a struggling side, I think he showed enough to say there's a real, genuine, top-level player there. I think it's too early to know if it's going to really work yet at Chelsea, because I think there's so much more he needs to develop. And it's so different playing in a team that struggles with a team that has plenty of the ball. He's suddenly going to have to be very, very patient when Chelsea keep possession.
In a perverse way, is it sometimes, for a player like Delap, easier to play in a struggling side? Because it seemed like everything went through him and he was the main man. And he's not going to be that main man at a bigger club.
Yeah, it's a great point, because you're right. Everything is fed towards getting the best out of him, because they're reliant on him to get the goals to keep them in the Premier League. Chelsea won't look at it in that way. It's more patterns of play, getting the likes of Cole Palmer on the ball. I think that's the thing that impresses me the most about Erling Haaland, is his discipline and patience. To not be involved at all for passages of play after passages of play, making runs and not getting the ball. That really takes a strong mentality to be that player. And that's something that he's going to have to develop, because he won't be used to that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, the window's closed, but there are all sorts of key dates, the first of which is the window opens again in 6 days. So there we've got the Club World Cup starting June 14th. As I say, window opens 16th, 6 days' time. And then, of course, there's the extra registration, which Carve has been telling us about, when they're actually at the Club World Cup tournament. So many key moments to come. As you can see, PSR deadline, that's going to be important. Who's in trouble, who's not. Club World Cup ends. Premier League season begins August 16th. No rest for the players. Transfer deadline, September the 1st. I want to go back to player welfare. It does bother me a bit that there's just no rest.
I think that's why there is such big squads now, is to try and give players a break when you put the pressures under the managers are under. How can you rest your key players? As players, you don't want to. You try telling players to not play in big games. Very, very difficult. And ultimately, you're being paid incredibly well to perform regularly and keep yourself in perfect condition to deal with the physicality of being a professional footballer. So I don't think we can turn around and say, actually, I don't fancy working today. I'm a bit tired. I don't think you can be that person. Yes, we've got to try and, of course, think of those things.
Rodri said it, didn't he? He said,
did.
I'm tired, and then he got a serious injury.
Exactly, yeah, and it's very difficult. But ultimately, you know, that's your job, is to try and be fit, be available, and be able to cope with the rigours of being a professional footballer. I don't think that's going to change.
There's a good release actually from FIFPro, the World Players Union, and they have released almost a set of demands, which is what they're asking for, and it came out today, and they are saying that players should be guaranteed a break of at least 4 weeks every summer with no club or international commitments. They're also saying that players should have 2 weeks of zero communications with club or country. So for 2 weeks every summer, clubs and national associations have to totally leave players alone. Don't call them, don't message them, don't try and monitor what they're eating or what they're doing.
They should do that here.
They're also saying that pre-season should be at least 4 weeks every summer, and players should have a minimum of 2 days recovery between appearances. So lots of demands, you could call them, that FIFPro, the World Players Union, are making about all these concerns that people are having about player workload. I kind of get what Dean is saying, though. It's not like the old days where teams only had one substitute and it was basically the same starting 11 playing games after games after games. These big clubs, especially in the Premier League, have massive squads, and they also can make 5 substitutions as well. So it's not like these players are playing every 3 or 4 days. Some of them are.
Well, you say that, but Pep Guardiola says, I want a small squad. What must the Manchester City players be thinking?
I know, and the demands of how teams play nowadays with the ball and without the ball. But we used to get 4 weeks off, and I came back a stone overweight. That can't happen anymore. These players are in great condition all year round. You know, the game has changed significantly in terms of how we look at players and their nutrition and their lifestyle and their sleep and all of those things. They couldn't be given a better environment now to cope with what they have to do.
Are they being monitored 52 weeks a year?
Of course.
That's what FIFA are asking for, just 2 weeks.
And I understand their point, but unless they come and show us the data that says this is why, here's the data, this is why they have to have it. You can't just say it. There has to be the data behind it, I think.
Did you seriously come back a stone overweight?
Yeah.
So that's what you picked out, that whole conversation.
I know.
What are you doing?
It was a great summer, I can tell you that.
How long,
That's what people want to know.
How long would it take in pre-season to get rid of that?
About 10 days.
10 days?
Yeah.
10 days?
Yes.
This is a whole other programme now.
All right, tell you what, take me like 10 years. All right, listen, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Manchester City's latest signing. They've got one over the line, another one. Rayan Cherki has arrived. Oh, yes. What is it, Dharmesh? It's done. Much more next.